We have become a third world country, folks, and it's not going to happen any longer. It's not going to happen any longer.
One of the most polarizing figures in American politics took the San Diego stage today. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm HIROSHIMA. The Republican presidential hopeful made San Diego his campaign stop this afternoon as Trump supporters rallied behind his promises to take care of veterans and take down ISIS. Protesters blasted the presumptive GOP nominee outside. Our team coverage begins with Jean Guerrero, who is outside with protesters now.
At least one person has been arrested at the Donald Trump rally here in front of the convention center. 2 people have received citations. The actual number could be higher. This information is according to a 4 p.m. press conference with the San Diego police. As you can see, we have police here behind me still prepared, and they'll be out here for the next couple of hours. They have masks on, they've got their batons, they're ready to deal with any sort of escalation in the protests that are happening today. Earlier this morning, they were largely peaceful. The confrontations that were occurring were mostly verbal, including some racial epithets. It wasn't until earlier this afternoon that we had some actual throwing of objects. We saw some objects being lit on fire, and when 2 people tried to trespass and climb onto the fence at the convention center is when the arrest was made and several other people were taken away. So the police are going to be sticking around for quite a while to make sure that the protests remain peaceful, although they have been escalating, as you can see behind me. Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
Our team coverage continues with KPBS reporter Steve Walsh, who was inside the San Diego Convention Center.
We're just outside the convention center here, where a rally of Trump supporters is now just breaking up. Candidate Donald Trump spent just under an hour speaking. Some of these folks were waiting here since 5 a.m. to see the presumptive GOP nominee. Eventually, they were treated to an impromptu speech, an appearance by Sarah Palin, the former governor of Alaska. During the speech, Donald Trump actually spent 11 minutes talking about the Trump University case that's actually in court here in San Diego, calling out personally Judge Curiel, who is the judge presiding over the case.
The judges in this court system, federal court, they ought to look into Judge Curiel, because what Judge Curiel is doing is a total disgrace, okay?
And at least 3 times during his speech, protesters were led from the building. This is the last of Trump's scheduled speeches here in California prior to the June 7th primary. From the Convention Center in downtown San Diego, Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
KPBS has begun looking into some of the political flyers that are clogging voters' mailboxes this election season. Claire Tregeser explores a glossy mailer supporting multiple candidates.
The front page shows a photo of San Diego Councilman Mark Kersey looking like he's in some apocalyptic scene on a movie poster. It encourages people to vote yes on Proposition H to reserve funds for infrastructure repairs. Inside are ads for San Diego City Attorney candidate Robert Hickey and Mayor Kevin Faulconer. This is what's called a slate mailer. It was sent by a group called the Neighborhood Improvement Voter Guide. AIMEE FAUCETT is the head of the Chamber of Commerce's Political Action Committee, which paid $60,000 to have Prop H included in the flyer.
It's a very cost-effective way of being part of a mailer. Mailers are very expensive, so it was a good way to get our message out.
On the back is an ad for Superior Court Judge Carrie Katz. Other versions of the mailer include candidates for City Council and County Board of Supervisors. The fine print says only Prop H and Hickey paid to be in the mailer, so all the other candidates were included for free. Claire Tregeser, KPBS News.
Show us the mailers you receive by tweeting a picture to KPBS News, posting them on our Facebook page, or by emailing us at kpbsmailers@kpbs.org. A sewage spill shut down the Campland Beach shoreline at Mission Bay today. The closure came after a clogged sewer line diverted more than 1,100 gallons of sewage through a manhole in Pacific Beach last night. City crews have cleaned up about 500 gallons. Officials say the remaining contamination went into a storm drain line. Water samples have been collected to determine potential impacts. San Diego County water managers are redrawing the county's long-term water supply picture, but some environmentalists say the planning process gets it wrong. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson has details.
San Diego County Water Authority officials say the region's long-term water supply forecast tries to predict usage and supply through 2040. Planners say the region will continue to cut back the amount of water bought from the Metropolitan Water District, and there will be a focus on developing more local supplies. That includes San Diego City plans for a major water recycling project, smaller recycling efforts in other areas, and even possibly more desalination. Environmentalists like Surfrider's Julia Chanhir says those plans rely too much on energy-intensive sources like desalination.
Look at our water supply, which is a very heavy user of energy and producer of greenhouse gases, and look at it in light of climate change. Not just looking at how climate change is going to affect our water supply, but how are our water supply options affecting climate change.
Here worries the persistent talk about a desalination plant at Camp Pendleton increases chances that that project will actually happen. She would like the authority to be more receptive to input, especially when it concerns climate change. The Water Authority's Bob Yamada, meanwhile, says climate change is a part of their planning equation. He says warmer temperatures are expected to push up local demand and reduce supplies coming from the Colorado River. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
Nearly 80 faculty members at San Diego State have signed a letter condemning school president Elliot Hirschman for his handling of flyers many consider Islamophobic. In April, conservative activist David Horowitz posted flyers on campus that listed students by name and said they had allied themselves with Palestinian terrorists. After student protests, Hirschman issued a statement saying the flyers were protected as free speech. On Thursday, Hirschman said in a statement he is organizing a campus dialogue on the matter. Burning documents, buying unusable land, and double paying vendors. Those are just a few of the problems the San Diego County grand jury found in a new report criticizing the financial management of the San Ysidro School District. Joining us with a look at the report, including some key errors, is iNewsSource reporter Leo Castaneda. Leo, the grand jury has some scathing criticism of San Ysidro. What are some of the key points of this report?
Some of the biggest complaints have to do with how the district has managed its actual physical schools. It was supposed to rebuild one, Bayer Elementary. It tore it down about 4 years ago and hasn't gone around to actually building it. And it bought land for a new school that later turned out to be environmentally protected and largely unusable. Meanwhile, San Ysidro has accumulated more than $430 million in bond debt. And that doesn't even get to issues like staff signing contracts without board approval, misusing bond money, and less than ideal board oversight.
The report also has some harsh words for the San Diego County Office of Education. What did the report say they did wrong?
For a while, San Ysidro was in such a bad financial position, it was at risk of going broke, so the County Office of Education had to place a financial advisor to help provide guidance. Around the same time, the district took out some maybe ill-timed bonds. The grand jury said the county should have put a stop to that, but that criticism seems to be based on some flaws in the grand jury's chronology. Documents we reviewed showed that the county advisor didn't get to San Ysidro until more than a year after anything could be done.
The report has several recommendations. So where does San Ysidro go from here?
Well, in the statement, the district superintendent said that he agrees with the jury's findings. They're taking steps like strengthening some transparency and internal financial controls. They're also considering creating a committee to oversee how bonds are issued and how that money is spent.
iNewsSource reporter Leo Castaneda, thank you. State lawmakers adopted a controversial plan proposed by Governor Brown in response to the state's affordable housing crisis. Today's assembly vote would fast-track building permits and waive some environmental reviews for high-density projects that include affordable housing. Brown's proposal seeks to bypass local politics and restrictions that have consistently blocked projects. The legislation faces strong opposition from some environmental groups and local activists who see it as an effort to weaken California's environmental quality law. The Commander-in-Chief visiting a historic war site today where silence speaks louder than words. President Obama paid tribute to the 140,000 people killed when the U.S. dropped an atomic bomb on Hiroshima in 1945. He placed a wreath at the memorial with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. He says the world has a shared responsibility to ask how to prevent the suffering that took place in Hiroshima more than 70 years ago.
We stand here in the middle of this city and force ourselves to imagine the moment the bomb fell. We force ourselves to feel the dread of children confused by what they see. We listen to a silent cry. We remember all the innocents killed across the arc of that terrible war and the wars that came before and the wars that would follow.
After he spoke, the president met with Hiroshima survivors. People across San Diego County this Memorial Day weekend will pay tribute to the men and women who have died defending our country. Among those pausing to reflect will be some World War II veterans. KPBS reporter Susan Murphy caught up with some of them.
More than 7 decades have passed since Ed Davidson's B-17 plane was shot down over France in World War II. 5 of his crew members perished that day, January 5th, 1944.
And because the airplane was on fire, they elected to bail out over the water, presumably drowned.
Davidson was captured and held prisoner by the Germans. Like every Memorial Day, he plans to pay tribute to his crew members and to all who have fought and died in wars, both current and past. He wants people to remember the cost of freedom.
You don't miss freedom until you don't have it. And that's one of the big things about being a prisoner of war. You've lost your individual freedom.
Ralph Kling knows all too well about losing his freedom.
Those of us that were unfortunate to have spent some time in a prisoner of war camp maybe appreciate it more than others.
Kling flew a P-47 Thunderbolt and was hit over Luxembourg on September 21st, 1944. He was captured by the Germans and nearly starved to death during a long march through snow. He'll never forget those who died fighting alongside him.
Some didn't give a lot, but a lot gave everything. And it doesn't matter which end of the spectrum you happen to be on.
Muriel Thompson repaired fighter planes with the Marine Corps in California during World War II. She plans to attend a remembrance ceremony on Monday at the National Veterans Memorial atop Mount Soledad.
Helps us remember some of the things that sort of get lost in the background.
They paid the price.
For Tom Peake, who drove torpedo boats during World War II, Memorial Day is one of the most important days of the year.
I think we all have to appreciate what people do in war. Even those that serve and come back healthy, which fortunately I was one of, and also, and more so, those that give their lives.
Susan Murphy, KPBS News.
It looks like we have mild, sunny weather on tap for the Memorial Day weekend. Steph Davis shows us more in tonight's KPBS weather report.
Happy Friday, everyone, and a happy kickoff to our Memorial Day holiday weekend. Weather looking good as we roll towards the weekend. You'll notice mainly clear skies and dry conditions all across the West Coast, and that quiet weather pattern also in place across our area. So things looking good from San Diego all the way towards Borrego Springs and then out towards the coast as well. Nothing to worry about weather-wise as we wrap up our Friday. For your Friday night in Borrego Springs, we'll will fall to an overnight low of 62 degrees with a couple of patchy clouds. A quiet night in store for Mount Laguna with overnight lows back into the 40s. Near 50 tonight in Ramona and Alpine, 58 and dry in Oceanside, and just some clouds building into San Diego itself with your overnight low at 62 degrees. A fairly seasonable Saturday across much of the Southwest, and that's also what we can expect in Southern California. Here's a look at your 5-day outlook for the coast. Low clouds breaking for sunshine Saturday and Sunday with your daytime highs near 70 degrees. For your Memorial Day Monday, mostly cloudy though dry with your high at 71. We'll see those clouds sticking around Tuesday and Wednesday along the coast with our high temperatures in the low 70s. 5-day outlook inland showing a similar pattern Saturday and Sunday. Low clouds breaking for sunshine with your daytime highs in the low 70s. Partly cloudy for your holiday Monday. High temperature 73. Will remain in the mid-70s Tuesday and Wednesday, with a mix of clouds and sunshine. 5-day outlook across the mountains showing sunny skies on Saturday. Cool, though pleasant, with our daytime high at 68 degrees. Similar conditions for your Sunday. And then temperatures really going to take off as we look ahead to early next week. Periods of sunshine for your Memorial Day Monday with highs in the mid-70s, 78 and mostly cloudy on Tuesday. And it sure is going to be warm across the mountains on Wednesday as daytime highs break to the low 80s. We'll wrap things up with your 5-day outlook for the desert. Plenty of sunshine Saturday and Sunday as daytime highs climb into the 90s, and then it's going to get hot. 97 for your Monday under partly cloudy skies. We're looking at triple-digit daytime highs as we look ahead to Tuesday and Wednesday. Steph Davis, KPBS News.
AAA says about 426,000 Californians intend to fly over the Memorial Day weekend. That's an increase of 2.5% from last year, and it comes amid major problems with the Transportation Security Administration, including massive security lines causing people to miss their flights. AAA projects about 4 million Californians will be driving this holiday weekend. This is an increase of nearly 3% from last year.
And dip from baseball, Tony Gwynn's family hopes their lawsuit will make that happen. San Diego's border fence as a test case for Donald Trump's Build a Wall campaign promise, and the upsides and downsides to living where the surf meets the turf. Join us for the roundtable tonight at 8:30 on KPBS.
Governor Brown signed an emergency bill today that authorizes an HIV-positive man to have part of his liver transplanted into his husband, who also has HIV. The measure was rushed through the state legislature to allow for the surgery before it becomes too dangerous. Federal law recently changed to allow transplants of HIV-infected organs to patients who have the disease. California was one of a dozen states who barred such transplants until now. For most people, death is an unscheduled event, but not for Eurika Strotto. Shortly after California's new aid in dying law takes effect on June 9th, the San Diegan plans to take a lethal dose of drugs. Strotto has ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, a condition that's invariably fatal. KPBS health reporter Kenny Goldberg and video journalist Katie Shulev profiled Strotto late last year. Today, they offer a final look at a woman who wants to die before a disease completely destroys her.
And here she is riding an ostrich.
Eurika Strotto has always lived an active life. Growing up in South Africa, Eurika played field hockey for her high school and college teams. She also became a judo champion.
I just wanted to show that one because she's had the moves.
So her wife Nita wasn't surprised, and when it came time to remodel their University Heights home, Eurika did most of the work herself, starting with the kitchen.
She decided she wanted to knock out the load-bearing wall, but we had to leave the post. So she figured out, well, why don't we just put the post in the middle of the bar counter, and it ended up looking really good.
Then Eurika tackled a bathroom.
And she actually herself tore out all the old bathroom and then rebuilt the walls from the up to the sheetrock.
Nita says it was during this project in 2013 that Eurika suddenly had problems with one of her feet.
We really thought that, you know, it was just a sprain or some sort of weakness thing. And we finished the bathroom and got married, and then a week later she was diagnosed with ALS.
Up the hill. Here we go.
When we first met Eurika last October, she was living in a wheelchair, but she had no trouble breathing.
Hey. Hi.
These days, because her diaphragm muscles are so weak, Eurika needs a machine to help her breathe most of the time. The way she figures, it won't be long before she'll lose the ability to swallow.
You know, this advance directive states choosing to self-administer medication to bring about my peaceful and humane death under the California Aid in Dying Act, end of life option.
Eurika's physician, Dr. Sunita Shailam, goes through the protocol required to write a prescription for a lethal dose of drugs.
You want good absorption of the aid in dying prescription.
Eurika was planning to take advantage of California's aid in dying law as soon as it went into effect. But some close friends are getting married on June 11th.
The law takes effect the 9th, and then, well, if it wasn't for their wedding, I probably would have exercised my right sooner, but I don't want to, because they've waited so long. I don't want to spoil their wedding, you know.
Right after that, Eurika says she'll fill the prescription and take her own life. However, it won't be all doom and gloom until the final moment. After all, she and Nita still have a lot of living to do. There's a trip to Morro Bay, some dinners with friends and family. Sure, they won't be able to do everything they've wanted to do, but who does? Nita says they never really talked about death before Eurika was diagnosed with ALS. Since then, the topic has been unavoidable.
It's weird how it hasn't diminished the beauty of life at all. In fact, if anything, it's highlighted how awesome our lives have been independently and together.
Nita explains she just doesn't have the emotional bandwidth to deal with anything else right now.
I'm full-time taking on the passing of my life partner, my wife, the love of my life, my best friend. And it's really becoming close to the end now, and I'm still not really thinking about her dying. I'm thinking about her being alive right now and in the living room, and that's where I want to be. It can hold, is it amphibious?
So that's where they're spending a lot of their remaining time together, in the living room, in the house that Eurika remodeled herself.
You didn't have them that big in South Africa.
You know, yeah, I've done a lot in my life, and we've done a lot since we've been together, and I don't regret any of it. It's just been cut a little short, but otherwise, it's been fantastic.
The excess salt is sneezed out.
Kenny Goldberg, KPBS News.
I'm Judy Woodruff on the next news hour. As Barack Obama becomes the first sitting president to visit Hiroshima, we check in on his goal of reducing nuclear weapons. That's Friday on the PBS NewsHour.
And now we're looking at another live shot outside of the convention center right now, where police have basically declared a gathering of protesters outside the convention center an unlawful gathering. The convention center is a site where Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump spoke earlier today. Police have been armed with SWAT gear. They're carrying batons and bats. They want to move people out of the area right now, as you can see. We'll continue to update this story on air and online at kpbs.org. For the third year in a row, there are two Scripps National Spelling Bee champs. 11-year-old Nihar Janga and 13-year-old Jaydam Hathwar tied for first place after spelling 24 words each. San Diego contender Ella Grace Peters participated in the preliminary rounds but didn't make the finals. She spoke with reporter Brooke Rayford about her run.
Buenos días.
Ella Peters can finally take a deep breath. For her first time in a National Spelling Bee, making it past the two spelling rounds, she should be pretty proud.
May I please have the definition?
First, she was surprised to win the County Bee.
My dad was like, "You got this, you're fine." I don't know. I'd been studying for a while.
More surprised, she was going to nationals to represent her hometown.
It's America's finest city. At first, I didn't appreciate the magnitude of what I was doing. Like, oh, I'm going to the National Spelling Bee. Let's start planning.
Excited, Ella has a great support team, her family.
I think it's really, it's exciting for me, for the world to see just a little bit of how fantastic she is.
It shows, hey, we're the Peters family. We have a smart sister.
Aside of her dedication to education, she has a passion for music.
There's a fire starting in my heart, reaching a fever pitch, and it's bringing me out the dark.
Regardless the results, Ella says she's proud of herself and looks forward to the future.
Even if I don't make the cut, it's really, really fun being here. I really, really would like to come back next year. I feel like I would have a good chance of at least placing if I really apply myself next year, and like with this experience it really helps.
In Maryland, for KPBS News, I'm Brooke Rayford.
Good afternoon.
And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. Have a great evening.